Hello, how's everybody doing? I hope everyone is doing well. Of course, I have my brother-in-law, my mentor, counselor. He's like a jocko in the box, right? Everything.
Jack of all trades, and master of them too.
That's right. That's right. Uh, um, and a massage therapist.
That's something that I pride myself on. You
Oh,
know,
down to the yes. Oh my goodness. So, big man. Oh, this is Alfred Mack Jr., aka Big Man. That's how I call him. All the family. I see that some of the family members has gotten used to calling him Big Man. Also, welcome. They love my nickname for you, right, Big Man?
that's a beautiful thing.
Was wonderful. So today we're going to be talking about childhood trauma, which is something that a lot of children, a lot of adults now, have experienced for over years, and sometimes when they go into relationship or in other aspect of their lifestyle, a lot of them don't realize that, and partners and family members and people in general are very insensitive about comments that they make, as to whether or not they bullying others and so many forth. But today is 9/11. It's been 21 years since we had the terrorist attack. So we're going to be remembering all the victims and the family member who lost loved ones. Some of them may have been traumatized from that attack. So we send our deepest condolences to everyone that was impacted. I mean, I think that most of the people living in America, just seeing it on TV and the aftermath, a lot of people, were impacted with the attack. So, big man, it just so happened we having this topic on a day that, for me, I call it America's, darkest tragedy.
Sure. It's one of those events that really touched everyone in America and even folks around the world. You know, I myself, on a personal note, lost a relative of mine. You know, Twin Towers. So it has impacted my family. Firsthand. Like in my conversation with you earlier this morning,
Yeah.
speaking, I can only imagine, each year or even every day, what my aunt, goes through, with the loss, of my cousin. It's something that has been traumatizing for her, and having your only, and your oldest son, that you lose in such a tragedy, it's something that, stays with you for a lifetime. So, that's a trauma that just doesn't go away.
Most definitely. I mean, Brother Oji, welcome everybody. I mean, like a lot of sometimes I think when incident or situation happen, those who caused or created the situation, they basically don't care, because you do have innocent people that always get caught up with tragic situation, right?
Sure.
And with some people, they may not, they might detach from that, and they don't care about the trauma that they cause in somebody else's family, because um, everybody loves their family members.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, like their love for each other may not be the same for other people, but human beings' life, matters.
Of course.
And most times when people have misunderstanding or misconception, or like whatsoever, personal, on a personal issues or business issues, or whatever you have against someone, like every actions that we take will affect somebody who has nothing to do with it. When there is a war in whatever countries or whatever,
Yeah.
it's always the citizens who ends up paying for it. Innocent people always end up, being the one who will be affected.
There you go. There's no question about that. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, childhood trauma is something that big man, you and I have spoken about it um, on multiple occasions for so many times. And I'm glad that you pushed me for us to, like, have a discussion about it, because I think that a lot of people lack of knowledge and understanding of how important it is, to help people who have experienced certain things, because trauma is something that stays with most people forever.
It's funny because you have a lot of elders and you have a lot of older folks today,
Hmm.
who say, well, a lot of the children are disrespectful and a lot of them, just are really outlandish, and
Yeah,
their behavior is just off the wall. And, had they, gotten their behind whipped, the way I did when I was little, or boom, or how, if they've been scolded the way I was scolded, when I was little, they wouldn't have turned out like that. And I beg to differ, and one of the reasons why I beg to differ, let's go back, to when I was small and when I was young and when you were young, you
yeah,
um let's say, to be honest, some 40 to 50 years ago. Back then, you know it was, it's just, you got your butt with, with an extension cord, with a broomstick, with the belt, and it didn't matter if the belt buckle, caught you here or caught you there. It didn't matter. It didn't stop, the beating or the butt whipping, so whatever was handy, if it was a shoe that was handy at the time, then, you got your butt whipped with a shoe,
yeah.
so and for me, honestly and speaking, I look back and I say to myself, well, did that really stop the action of what I did? Because 9 times out of 10, if I got my behind whipped for climbing up in that tree and I told you not to climb in that tree again, guess what? I climbed back in the tree. So it really did it really have an impact?
Of course, because the disciplinary action and the behavior does not connect.
Right.
There was no lesson learned through being flogged, being beaten, being whipped with so many different weapons. I mean, like, I feel like some of the older parents, they lack of so much knowledge, and they did not. I'm not sure. I don't want to defend them in some way. I just feel like, they knew the pain that they were inflicting on their children, grandchildren, or family members, but they did not seem to care about the trauma that they caused in that child, because it came to a point, like for me, as far as I remember, like, my parents who born me into this world did not put me through that type of trauma. However, a family member did. When my mom traveled abroad to join my father, we had to go live with some of her brothers, because she's the only female. So it's like, um, I feel like I got the worst end, because it was my big sister, myself, your wife, and and Eric, who had to live in our hometown, and my brother, went to Accra to live with our other uncle in capital town of Ghana. So, like, but among us, the flogging and the beatings and the constant yelling, and so many other things that happen. My mom never put ginger and pepper in my vagina, but living with my this certain uncle, his wife did do that to me maybe twice or more, because I did not listen to direction, or like they felt the need, to do that as part of punishment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It
So,
was really new to me, and it was traumatizing because my mother never did that to me. So at first, I didn't know what it was until I started feeling the hotness, like you trying to, like, make it go away, and it doesn't. It is really painful, very uncomfortable. And you have I have some of my cousins, who will like make fun of my pain, what I was going through, because okay, I got punished for
right.
something. So it's like they didn't get the same treatment. So the fact that I have to go through that, they were joyful,
Right.
so it's like it's a whole lot. And I remember, like, for me to come and live with a family member, and both my parents are living in abroad, you would think, say, family member would treat you, really well.
Yeah.
And,
You would think so.
and yes, and then you find out, and around that time that my mom joined my dad, there was no cell phone. You can go out to community center and make phone calls, but you need money to do that, right? And neighbors know neighbors, so it's like if you see me go there, I'm sure somebody is coming to gossip to that uncle. And he used to work in the post office. I remember, like, I would write letters to send to my mom, and then he'd be like, okay, I'll mail it, not having any idea. I was a child, what did I know?
Right.
He never mailed those letters. My mom was, writing to me. He was intercepting, because he always tell me, "Oh, your mom says study hard and stuff." Not knowing my mom was putting money in each one that she writes to me, and he would take out that money. He spends my money and then abuse me. Like, he traumatized me with all these beatings. Like, he will use sometimes a bamboo switch, right?
I know
That
it all.
he has is like it's done in and accordingly, and the smallest one was the painful one,
Yeah, that was the one that hurts. Yeah.
because that one can like bend in and out,
Yeah.
right? So
I
it's like it didn't matter where he was hitting you. I remember, like, he used to shave my hair like a boy. Like, I would basically walking in town like, I'm a boy. I wouldn't have hair on my head.
and that in itself is traumatizing.
Most definitely. I felt really ugly around that age, because I went to live with them when I was 10 and a half to 16, almost 16 and a half, because when I left to join my parents, I was 16 and a half, going to 17. So all this type of, instances, happening to you, it traumatizes you, and it takes a while. And for most Ghanaians who went through abuse, being flogged, being mistreated and neglect and so many other things, most of us did not have any counseling, to go through the process. I think the job that we worked together, having TCI Sanctuary Model, was my counseling. Because as I listened to the things, the tools that they gave me helped me to process a lot of things, right? That happened to me growing up. However, not everyone had the privilege, to get that process going for
Well,
them.
and at the same time, for me, a little bit different because, long before, I've, been educated to different ways and strategies
Yes.
of focusing in on, different kinds of behaviors that come from my children.
Yeah.
One of the first things that, I candidly, said to myself is that number one, I don't like the pain. I don't like the pain. I never did like the pain of getting, my behind whipped in no kind of way, and that trauma, whether it was a switch, an ironing cord, a belt, broom, whatever it is, I remember that pain.
That's
And there
right.
was no way in tarnations that I was going to inflict that pain on my children. And I made a promise to myself that any day that I have children, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're going to have to experience,
Mm,
a belt or a whip or a switch or, a broom or extension cord, an ironing cord. They were not going to experience that. Why? Because I didn't like that pain. I know what it feels like. And I'll be darned if I'm going to inflict that pain and that trauma onto my kids. So for me, being, the candid person that I am, I used, a strategy, for me, and what worked for me was number one was I call it, verbally punching you in your heart.
mm,
And when I say verbally punching you in your heart, it's really, really letting you know that what you did was wrong and the impact that it not only had on me, but and whatever you did, the impact that it had on others. And in doing that, my kids even tell me today, they'll tell me, Dad, I really wish I'd have got my butt whipped because those conversations that you had with me that brought me to tears, the ones that made you feel it in your heart, and made you reflect, about what you did and the wrongness in what you did, so I really spelled it out,
mm.
for my children, and I didn't spell it out by screaming or yelling or snatching them up. I spelled it out, in just real stern honesty, and they saw the expressions on my face and the hurt, on my face by the actions in which took place, and the things that they did. And so, with that being said, it hit home. It resonated. So as I stated, my kids tell me today, yo, Dad, those talks, though they were painful. You know,
It does. It does. Brother Shalom Kwanzaa said these things also increased during the COVID-19 pandemic. Most definitely. I mean, like, trauma does connect with, like, mental health,
of
even
course.
our physical health. Like being isolated, not by your own choice. It was mandatory for us to, like, isolate ourselves because we have to social distance. So there's a lot of things. We have people who needs to be outside in the open, and they were forced to, like, isolate indoors. That itself, cause them to commit suicide. We need to pay attention to each other, family members, loved ones, children, people in general. You have people who will vent on social media. Some of us would think that, okay, there's something wrong with the person. Hell to the years. They might be going through some mental health issues. They might be, kind of venting out um, their trauma, things that they experience, growing up. Because as a child, we don't have a choice. Whoever you living with, that person have control over you. They have power.
So
They can do whatever to you.
let's now we've gotten personal in our experience, but let's broaden it a little bit. And when I say broaden it a little bit, because see, one of the things that I do know, from past experience and having friends and stories of being told, and even current events. I was always a young person who was stuck on current events. You have children, long before pandemics or things like that.
Yeah,
Isolation was a form of punishment. There
of
were
course.
closet, they were not given, anything to eat. You're not getting dinner tonight. You're going to stay butt in this closet and you're not going to get out.
Yeah,
They were placed, in an isolated setting, where it was dark and in some instances where it was cold,
mhm,
and they didn't receive any food,
yeah,
things of that nature. In addition to that, you have folks who were put into a cold tub. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have a fever, they didn't boom, but they had to stay in the cold tub. You have some who were put into a hot water tub.
yeah. And
Where the
some of
water was
them will
hot.
be will be forced to strip naked, stand at the corner or some of them, like, it goes into a lot of sinister, because we do have some molesters, some rapers, pedophiles, whereas, your punishment is you going to give me a blowjob tonight,
Yeah.
as to whether or not you like it or not, having, raping a baby, and some family members, they see all this um, instances, situation happening, and nobody says nothing. Big man, I have a couple. Let me read a couple comment. Brother Obi brought a couple things that we haven't extended to. So, Brother Shalom, thank you so much for sharing the page and sharing the program. Brother Obi said, although even schools that's supposed to teach us were beating us because we were finding it hard to learn. I mean, like, big man, I don't know if it's happening now. I think now it's not happening as before. I remember, like, when you go to school and you get there late, the teachers will line us up, right? And then you will get beatings. For the females, the male teacher will, hold your dress, press it to your butt, and make sure you get good beatings to your backside, right? And for the boys will be in their back
Yeah.
or the butt side. But, like, for women, most African women have big butt. So it's like, it was very difficult for so many of them. So I remember I started running to school. I didn't want to be late for school because I had to walk to school. There wasn't no, because your parents live in abroad, so you're going to be driven to school. Please, you are not that of important. But Obi said, I remember some of my schoolmates stopped school because of corporate punishment, which is, something that used to happen a lot. I mean, in my era, because I'm in my 40s. In my era, it was happening a lot. Brother Obi said, "Oh, those were traumatized experiences that made our minds very dull." I mean, big man, what are your thoughts on that? Because
Well, it's funny, that you mentioned, school, because when I was growing up, the ruler, was used, quite often,
for the fingertips, right? You
yeah,
gotta put the
know,
fingers together.
you had, and they would tape the rulers together and things like that, where it'd be more than one. The principal, he even kept like an 18-inch ruler in his office, and things of that nature. So I remember that vividly, but I also remember the transition to, whereas, parents became, one of the things that it's been eradicated, from the schools, is because during that transition, you had parents is like, look, they remember when they were hit with the ruler, or in the classroom and whatever have you.
That's right.
And there were parents who were like, look, you're not going to do that to my child. And if you do that to my child, I'm going to come here and I'm going to beat your behind. So I've witnessed teachers and parents go head to head in fights, because of the transition phase.
That's
It's like you cannot. I first and foremost, I remember my experience in being in the principal's office and telling him outright, you might hit all these other kids, but you're not going to hit me with that, because if you hit me with that, I'm going to hit your behind back.
Oh my gosh, you were like, you
Oh yeah,
have passed
no,
the point of
yeah,
being obedient.
no, I
Obedient.
was. You weren't hitting me with that. I know what it's like, to have my behind beaten and whatever have you. I'll be damned if I'm going to have somebody who's not related to me, nobody in my family. I don't care if you're a principal or not. You're not hitting me with that. To whereas they had to call my mom, who worked in the school. They had to call her down, to the office and the
Oh
whole.
my gosh.
I was like, it wasn't going down. It wasn't going to happen under no circumstances whatsoever. You can dish out whatever punishment. You can suspend me. You can have me, do after school detentions or whatever, but you're not putting your hands on me, or it's going to be a fight in this office.
And you know what, big man, you made a great point and a big point, because all that beatings, traumatizing children after children in school premises, family homes, married home, and so many other places. It makes children become learn to be more aggressive. They
Sure.
get angrier. Their emotions goes on spiral. They're not able to self-regulate their emotions when they feel in certain way. Beside fighting and getting themselves in trouble, there was nothing else, right? There was no tools that they can utilize that will make them be able to make safe decisions. Like people using their hands, because I remember back in the days, if you get into fight, it's like beat down. You're not going to be. But nowadays, because of cowardness and things has changed, changing. People using guns and
Yeah.
knives, to like get into that. But
Well, it's one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that trauma is as trauma does.
that's right.
So that simply means that if you've been exposed to trauma and you've developed no coping strategies or no skills or anything to overcome that trauma, you're going to exhibit it on your children and people that, as you become adults, whatever have you. It's like, it's a cycle that goes on. If you've been molested, then you're going to molest people,
Most
you
certainly,
old or
and
whatever.
a high
So
number is going to do that.
right.
Welcome everybody.
So at some point in time, if the issue isn't addressed, if the trauma isn't addressed, if it's not brought to the surface,
Hmm.
if it's not dealt with, then yes, it is going to carry over. You know,
Exactly.
there's no question about it, without a doubt. See, one of my things, as I mentioned before, and just realize I made a vow and a promise to myself that I would not inflict this pain upon my children. Sure. I mean, there may be on occasion, my children may have gotten popped on their behind, with my hand. But so far as picking up an item and doing that and yelling and screaming and going through the whole things that I'm still that is traumatizing. Never,
Most definitely. Yeah.
never.
I mean, I was watching. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. Please, I just hit my bad hand. Oh my goodness gracious.
Sorry, but you better hang in there, sis. Take it.
Oh my goodness. It
Okay.
hurts so bad. Oh Lord. During life. Oh my goodness. I'm going to hang it in there. you know, um, it's as you mentioned, most people who were like raised in a domestic violence home, toxic environment, abusive home, majority of them also turn out to display the same type of behavior, with their own family or people around them, people that they claim that they care for. Whereas you have a small amount of numbers who will do the opposite. As you say, you say you made a vow to yourself that you will never, display whatever trauma was, done to you. You're not going to have your children go through. I made the same vow because it wasn't a pleasant thing, being flogged, being beaten, having ginger and pepper insert in your vagina because
Traumatizing.
I know, right? Because you said something that you're not supposed to. You disrespect your elders, or like they feel that that is a punishment that you deserve. I mean, I don't know if they were trying to like kill my my pleasure in there or whatever, but I make sure that that never happened again. But all the same, the experience, it gets stuck in your head, right? And my reason of learning to love so much stems from that traumatized event, that experience that I had with a family member. And, in Ghana, I remember the time in my era of growing up, uh, not only your parents can discipline you, you have neighbors and people, family members who can also do that. And nobody will stop them or say nothing because they are adults and they can do whatever. And then my older sister, she was a bit older than we were, and she was working, so she spent less time home. She's mostly working, so it triggered the beating and the flogging. Triggers down to your wife.
Well,
You know, you
that's
have
that
it
old
worse.
that's that old saying that says, by in between the time that an incident happened and by the time that it got, to your parents, you already had about three or four behind whippings.
Oh yes.
So by the time you got home and you got that fourth one, it's like, geez, are you kidding me?
Well, big man, it got to a point with the beatings. It got to a point when I'm going to do something, I started intentionally doing things, and I will wait it if it was worth doing that and getting beating, and then I'll go ahead because I got used to being flogged. So I didn't care because after all, what else is new, right? It gets to that point, and but for them, they thought that it was a lesson being taught to us, but
Yeah,
they
you
were
know,
traumatizing us.
well, there's a difference between a corrective action that's just not going to work.
That's right.
And it was in their eyes a corrective action, to punish, someone for wrongdoing or whatever, so that they won't repeat it. Well, like I said, it didn't work because chances are, whatever you got your behind whipped for at that particular time, by next week you did it again. So it was like, hey, was it really a corrective action? No.
No, I mean it was corporate punishment. I mean that's why I'm saying, like, because of lack of knowledge, because a lot of them do not have understanding of nothing. Sometimes you feel like when people get older, they should be smarter, but you do have some older people around that time. They were as dumb as fuck. Excuse my French. They didn't know much. It's just them being older. Aside from being older, they nothing else.
Well, there's and remember, one of the things that you had mentioned earlier is that, as you got older and you've taken like things like psychology, you've learned different training, you've learned coping skills, and what emotional intelligence is,
Yeah.
and that nature. So you learn what we call self control, and self control is to be able to not let yourself get to a point to where you're exerting aggressiveness and violence, towards someone else. Whether that person can be a stranger, it can be your children, it could be anyone, and so that's something that's learned, and in a lot of other cases, before even that training, as I've stated before, what the pain
Hmm.
feels like, and by God, it's something that you can't find yourself to exert on somebody else, whereas others are like, okay, well, hell, I was able to deal with it and I was boom, so you're going to be able to deal with it as well, so I'm going to exhibit that pain and that aggression on you. Okay, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. it's
That's
not
correct.
it's
That's
not fair when there are so many other ways, you understand, that you can, create a corrective action and a form of punishment. There are a lot of things that I wish, were taken away from me so I didn't have to experience that pain. When I say taken away from me, I'm sure there were toys and things that I liked,
right.
at the time, or, that I like, or games, that I like playing, or having outside play, whatever, whatever. No, well, you're going to stay in the house. You're not going outside. It's going to be no playtime for you. I mean, things of that nature. So there's so many forms, of corrective action and punishment that doesn't have to be, you're becoming physically aggressive, and your child's ends up with scars and
That's
bruises
right.
and marks, and let's call a spade. There are people, because they have been traumatized in their lifetime, that's all they know. So that's what they exhibit. There's a reason that administration of children's services exists today.
Most
There's
definitely.
there's a reason, because you have some parents who are mentally inept and they go above and beyond to the extreme of punishing their child. You have a lot of men, because of their dominance and egotistical, just
Narcissist.
you understand? And that's, yeah. So the as being kind, narcissist is being straight up, sociopath is being straight up, and they are. You understand? Saying they beat their wives, they beat their children, and they treat their dog and much better than they would their children, and their wives when it comes to a flogging or a beating.
This is
You know,
really
I,
sad.
I know women, who have been beaten as if they were a punching bag
Oh
under
my God.
circumstances. And I know children who have been beaten, as if they're a punching bag or whatever, and the bruises, that, are inflicted upon them, for whatever reasons. It's outlandish and it's uncanny. So, with that being said, as I stated before, there are reasons, for protective services like ACS,
Yeah,
understand, when children are removed away from their home. No foster care, and other programs, are it's not the same as being, with family.
that's right.
That's understood. I would prefer a child to be in a foster care home, than to be, with an uncle or aunt who's just as traumatizing as the parent. You
Most
know,
definitely.
so that's point blank and simple. Sure, you have to weed out the bad apples, because there are foster parents who are abusive, there are
That's right.
foster dads who are rapists, and things of that nature. So we definitely have to filter out who those people are, so that we don't end up removing a child from an abusive home and family setting and placing them then in something that's much worse. So
Most
we,
definitely. Hi,
we
baby sister.
we definitely have to be careful with that. But let's let's call it what it is. Trauma is trauma. It affects us all. you
That-
know we remember it vividly. you know
Yeah. We
question
don't forget any details. It don't matter how many years has
yeah,
passed.
you know the
We remember it.
the question is how do we break the cycle? And breaking the cycle so that we don't carry it over. Because see, there are times to where your parents may have thought they were doing the right thing by letting you go stay with uncle and aunt, whatever, and then you end up being raped or whatever have you, regardless of whether you were a male child or a female child.
Mhm.
That's traumatizing.
That's right.
And you go and you stay with this uncle or whatever, and you're having, chili peppers and ginger, stuffed up your vagina. That's traumatizing.
That's
Those are things that you're going to remember. So the question is how do you break the cycle? Number one, you break the cycle by communicating. Communicating at whatever age that you get a chance to communicate with your parents, to let them know, number one, that this is what you've been through.
That's
You know,
right.
and this is what you experience. Communication is hard. It's ugly. Nobody wants to say, or talk about, having, being a child, and having a penis in this part of their body and stuffed in that part of their
That's
body,
right.
and nobody wants to talk about all the ugly things.
Hmm.
But in order for you to break the cycle and to overcome that trauma, it has to be addressed. It has to be talked about.
Most definitely.
It has to be, brought, to the surface, and not in the sense of, because, keep in mind, now there are instances whereas we have, children who expose the traumas that they've been through, to their parents or to somebody that they trust, and wasn't
They
able to
don't
do it.
believe
Yeah,
them. Yeah,
understand?
they believe the adults over them, especially in Ghana when it comes to men, supposedly men of God. Like most of them, no, because he's, a church leader. Most parents will believe that church leader over their child. I remember, I don't know if any of you heard that audio. There was an audio going on a couple years ago of two girls who were both molested by their pastor. And then when the older child finally broke the cycle and started communicating, talking about it, the mother was trying to get her to say that it did not happen, that she made it up. as a mother, your job is to protect your child from something like this. And it was the opposite. So it went around on social media for a long period of time, and people started recommending the woman. That's when things started happening. But you do have a lot of like families within um, the society and the community within the in Ghana that they will cover it up to protect family names.
Yes.
They know these things are happening in the community. They know these things are happening, but nobody wants to take that extra step, take the next step in making sure that, pedophiles are being put in jail, rapists are being put in jail, and abuses are being put in jail, like all around. Like a lot of children, family members, people has been traumatized, which in terms like when they get older, it affects your relationships. You have some people, they can't hold a relationship, they can't hold their marriages. And when it comes to our Ghanaian community, big man, everything is blame on the females. Women this, women that. The men are being pampered. Like the men never do wrong, right? Maybe growing up, they get flogged here and there. But when it comes to relationship, with their sexual interaction, everything that they do, oh, the woman may have caused it. The woman is not giving it. Like they take everything like it's normal. There's nothing wrong with it. So women should not be feeling any type of emotional stress, emotional struggles. A lot of our Ghanaian women are being, and I'm sure it's happening with some other people across the world.
Mhm.
But I'm speaking from what I see,
I
what
understand.
I know, and but like they're being emotionally abused, physically abused, psychologically, financially. Because if you have a dependent woman on their partner, even being able to get money to go buy panties, underwear, is going to be a problem.
Well, well, yeah, and that's insane, and what makes it, as you were speaking, one of the things that I was just coming through my mind, if ever there's a day, of an uprising of women, in your country, I'll tell you, it's long overdue.
I'm telling you, something needs to be done. You see, you talk about ACS, right? In America, we do have that, even though sometimes they do miss a couple incidences, which turns fatal, right? But the majority of the time, they're able to intervene, right? Of children that are going. Ghana, we don't have that. I don't believe they have. They might have something like that, but during the time I was living in Ghana, I never saw anything like that. Because even if you go to police station as a child to complain about abuse, you will find yourself being flogged by a policeman because they will label you as a bad child. Like you will be the one in trouble. So big man, I was like, I went to Google because I wanted to and I went to Wikipedia to kind of like see childhood trauma, the meaning of it. All right. So
Sure.
according to Wikipedia, childhood trauma is often described as serious adverse childhood experiences, ACS. And then you have children may go through a range of experiences that classify as psychological trauma. This might include neglect, abandonment, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and physical abuse. Witnesses abuse of sibling or parent, or having a mentally ill parent. These events have profound psychological, um, psycho, psych, psychological and sociological impact, and can have negative lasting effects on health and well-being, such as on social behavior, attention deficit, hyperactive, hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and
Mhm.
sleep disturbances.
Right.
Similarly, children with mothers who have experienced traumatic or stressful events during pregnancy can increase the child risk of mental health disorder and like other neuron developmental disorder. So it's like, this is some of the things that a lot of family members, a lot of people don't realize that they creating, like,
Well, one of the things that from reading what you just read
yeah.
and knowing is that the majority of mental health issues
Hmm.
stem from past trauma,
That's right.
past or things that you've been exposed to in your life. Sure, there are cases to whereas, mental health, issues are hereditary, genetic, whatever have you. But
Hmm.
at the same time, it's minuscule, to the amount, of mental health problems that stem, from a traumatic experience in one's
Hmm.
life. And that trauma comes in so many forms.
That's right.
So many forms. It can come in not so much as things happening to you,
Hmm.
but if you were raised in, let's say, for instance, if you were raised in a household of, an alcoholic parent,
That
who
makes
abuses
sense.
who abuses his wife, every single time, they have a drink or something of that nature, and this is something that you see. You see the domestic violence, you
Mhm.
see the abuse, and then, later on in your life, you have bouts, with mental health. One of the reasons is because of things that you were visually exposed to,
Mhm.
as a child. So the trauma doesn't always has to be, an infliction of aggression or violence, or rape or incest or whatever have you upon you. It can be things that you can see, and grow things that you experience, in growing up just visually, observing.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, like I said, the majority of mental health issues stem from a past trauma or experience, that you've been exposed.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize the psychological and the emotional aspect abuse are the most dangerous one because it's not visible. People don't see it. It's coming from within, right? So Crisscross Mensa said, "I experienced that kind of situation with a pastor, but I put a stop to it beforehand. I made it clear that if he cherished his genitals, he will respect himself. Once he realized I was not joking, he tried to play it as a joke to see my reaction." You see, like, I mean, like, one thing I love about my mom, she kind of like, provide tools for most of us. But when you are traumatized, you don't even think about something like that is also going to happen to your younger siblings, right? Because I remember when I was like maybe 14 or 15, I used to like, crisscross when she's younger. So if she does something, I will hit her in the head or like, because that's all I've been taught by this certain uncle. Everything you do, if you don't do something well, I will hit the back of her hands, I will shove her and stuff like that. I'm her big sister and I'm supposed to be protecting her, but I didn't know better,
Right.
at the time. I mean, as time went on, I learned, but there was a period of time now I was abusive to my baby sister, because when she does something that I don't like, I will hit her, and I also develop anger management issue through the flogging and being maltreated. I used to get angry about even petty stuff. I will get very upset with that, right? Uh, with trauma, we have behavior which is poor self regulation, social withdraw, being aggressive. I was also aggressive. I would get aggressive. I would get into fights, you know, and I really didn't care who it was. Some people will go into sexual acting out. They will sexually act out. They will start, being having sex with multiple partners because that's the only way that they feel comforted, right? They're not choosing to have sex with different partner, but they feel that during that interaction, that's when they feel that someone cares for them,
Right.
even though they don't. Most men will not reject sex, right, big man?
Of course. I mean, you have, well, see, in that case, you have to be careful because, you have the gratification, the gratification of,
X factor.
being sexually stimulated, the gratification of having an orgasm, being able to release or whatever. It's a feel good moment, and, if that's your feel good moment, a lot of people are going to gravitate towards that feel good moment. You
Mm,
know, at the same time, it's the time where you're receiving pleasure, where you're feeling the warmth, you're feeling the care, you're feeling the love, even though it's just only in an instant. You
yeah,
understand what I'm saying? It's quote unquote better than the flogging, it's better than the pain, it's better than the trauma when in itself, you
yeah,
know, it is a trauma, in itself. Promiscuity, particularly, at an early age, being exposed to promiscuity at an early age, it is, a trauma in its own right because of the premise and the origin in which you started and why you started. Okay. And you started, based on, again, something traumatic or traumatizing, happened to you. For instance, to give you an example, we have, children who are molested, at an early age. Okay. However, at the same time, it's at that age that they learn that feeling of that orgasmic feeling, that feeling of, just euphoric, sexual realm or whatever have you. So it's the feeling, you understand what I'm saying, that they like, but it's the trauma of being molested and being abused that is just out of this world. So and just should never happen to anyone. But now here you are, you're caught up in between, the feeling in itself. So it's something that you're going to seek out. You're going to seek out that feeling because you like that feeling. The feeling is great.
that's right.
Whole aspect of being, molested and raped and going through that, that's just traumatizing. And so that's why we have so many, mental health issues, based on instances of trauma that we've been exposed to, at an early age.
Yes, make me I'm laughing because of Sister Aisha. And also like in terms of childhood trauma, some of the impact can also be drug and alcohol usage addiction. Into that, which falls under behavior. Sister Aisha Ankra said, when I was a child, I saw my granny's sister husband drinking lot alcohol and end up eating soup and water instead of fufu and soup. Have never tested alcohol in my life. Please, what effect is that? That falls into part of like behavior issue and I believe brain development, right? Because how can you eat fufu with water thinking that is soup?
Well, here it is. See, you have to keep in mind, that alcohol alters the brain. You
That's
know,
right. It does alter the
brain.
brain.
It takes you, particularly if you're drinking a lot.
Hmm.
If drinking a lot, you understand what I'm saying, then your frame of mind and your way of thinking and your way of seeing it in any way of normal, it just simply goes out the window.
That's right.
So the behaviors that you exhibit and the things that you do is, just out of this world. It's not of your right mind.
Yeah.
It's not being sane.
That's right.
know, you know, when people drink a lot, what's okay for them to do, understand what I'm saying, is it's beyond belief.
Mm.
You know, because they don't see themselves doing anything wrong. You
They
know,
see that's normal.
yeah, things that they will try, things that they would do, unbeknown that when the alcohol wears off and you wake up the next day or a couple of days later, and some people tell you you did this, you go, oh no, I didn't. They can't believe it because it's not them. They're not in their right frame of mind.
Yeah.
So there are so many things, that people do, while under the influence. I myself, I work in, a psych ER unit, at a major hospital in New York City. And when people are highly intoxicated, they bring them to the psych emergency room.
Yeah.
Why they bring them to the psych emergency room? Because they're not in their right frame of mind.
Poor impulse control.
Sure. So they're not going to, have them, admitted into the hospital. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to bring them to the psych emergency
Of
room.
course.
Why? Because they have a mental health condition which,
Mm.
which has been ensued by the intake of lots and lots of alcohol.
Yeah, Sister Aisha, you're not missing nothing out, not drinking. I mean, drinking alcohol is not good. You know, especially if you consuming it on a daily basis. I mean, once in the blue moon, occasionally, I have red wine, but I'm not a drinker.
Well, let's not get it, confused. I mean, people who drink like a glass of wine a day, can live a life of longevity. It can be helpful, you
Yeah,
know. However, we're talking about abuse drinking.
that's right.
Abuse drinking, over the top. It's just something that you can't do. It takes a toll on the body. It takes you out of your right frame of mind, and it changes you. It turns you into a Mr. Hyde. The Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Well, it changes
Mhm.
you, from that doctor mode into the animal mode of Mr. Hyde. You know not what you do. So excessive drinking, is just, it's not good for you.
That's
But
right.
having a glass of wine, if you have a glass of wine every day,
That's healthy drinking.
it's
Yes.
like drinking. You're likely to have live a life of longevity. But you have to be careful now, because nowadays, okay, they have, like beer. You can get a large can of beer and you're only spending 50 cents on it. That stuff is like gasoline. You know, and it's like, come on, it's a difference between drinking, a 20-ounce can of beer for 50 cents, and a bottle of Guinness Stout. It's a
That's right.
it's a total difference, in the quality of what you're drinking, and what you're consuming. So you really have to be careful. I mean, if you're going out and you're having a shot, whatever, have a couple of shots at the start of the event or whatever have you. Have a drink or two at the start of the events, and then drink water for the rest of the night. Because when you don't want to be, in a situation to where you're waking up the next day and you don't know where you are, you don't know why you're naked, you don't know, what you did the night before.
Oh
You
my
understand what
gosh,
I'm
that
saying?
is the worst.
And it's like you don't want to, put yourself in that situation, because there are, let me tell you something, you will be taken advantage of, if you're not in your right frame of
Oh,
mind.
of
I've,
course.
I've seen it happen on many of instances and
Oh,
on
yes.
occasions, and I'm not talking about just women, I'm talking about men as well. You
Yeah,
understand what I'm
your
saying?
behind is going to be violated.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? And you wake up in the morning and you wonder why your butthole is hurting, or your vagina feels like, an elephant has been up in there, and the last thing you remember is that you were on your fourth drink.
Mm, 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 mm. And then with people using date rape, like, I mean, that's one thing, big men. I chose not to drink in my teenage years, 20s. Like, I chose not to drink because I have like two high school friends, who went to a party, got drunk. They were gang raped. One is still in and out of mental institution, and the other one, she's a mess. And how their life turned out is so disturbing and sad. They were not able to have the life that I'm living because of one day of going out to have fun, and they chose to drink. So misuse of alcohol and drugs, it can alternate your life,
Of course,
and alcohol itself, as Big Man said, it does alternate your brain,
yeah,
your behavior,
yeah,
everything that you do. So I mean, when it comes to most of Ghanaian men, they are drinkers. Most of them get drunk. Some of them they get so drunk. I'm talking about back home. I haven't seen any here yet. They don't even know where they're going. They walking like they're about to fall in the gutter. It's ridiculous. Some of them have gotten into that, and many of them may not even connect it to childhood trauma. And this
well,
is something that they have seen and have gone through.
I've always said that excessive, people drink excessively,
Hmm.
to compensate for something else. You know,
Yeah.
something's not right, something is missing. They feel, for a lot of reasons. I know folks, who a lot of blue collar workers who feel that they work a job and they're not getting paid what they're worth, and they become heavy drinkers to compensate for the crap that they have to put up with when they go to work. I know folks who drink excessively because of a dissatisfaction with something in their life that they're just not satisfied with.
And it's going to affect their work
Sure.
performance, right? Because
Yeah,
I mean, it changes their behavior.
that's right. And
They
so,
may not do it accordingly. They may start. Some of them may start stealing company time. Kind of like mistreating clients, patients. And so many other things. It changes everything.
so there's a difference. There's an entirely difference between being a social drinker
Yeah.
and being an alcoholic and drinking excessively.
Oh, definitely, Mose. But some of them are alcoholic, but they in denial. They don't want
Of
to
course,
admit that
you
they
know,
are alcoholic. Big
you
man,
know,
Chris Cross sent something. It's going to almost cover our head, but I'm going to read it anyway. Chris Cross Manson says, sometimes I feel like some children, youth, and grown ups can't differentiate from what a red flag is and what is not, because most cultures are taught to respect their elders, pastors, and anyone above them. They see them as father figures or mothers. Many cultures teaching about molesting is not an important thing to discuss more than money and fame, and also covering family name. Lack of knowledge is also a big problem. Big man, this is something like in with our culture, Ghanaian culture. You have to respect your elders. I don't have any problem with that, but this type of practice, you may have an adult who is wrong, and the child will be the one who will be reprimanded.
and this is again, this is what I say in regard to the voice,
Hmm.
and taking a strong stand. I'll go back to the principal, when I was in elementary school.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can respect my elders in the whole 9 yards, but I'll be damned if you're going to hit me with that ruler. You understand what I'm saying? And that was me. So I understand, what you're saying, boom, I should respect my elders. But this one here, he's a fucking molester. This is what he is. And I'm going to call him out every time I get a chance. If I have to take an ass whipping because of it, it's going to be what it is. The voice is a powerful thing, and let's not sleep on it. Because the
Right.
bottom line is like, look, let's not get this confused. This is not respect for elders. You understand? This is calling out. what it is and what he is or what she is.
That's
You understand? They're an abusive person, they're an asshole, and I'm calling it out for what it is. You understand what I'm saying? And that's what needs to be said. So I understand, and what I need, children to understand is that they have a voice and they have a powerful voice. Let's not let the elders get away. You understand what I'm saying? With what is respect for them. You
right.
understand what I'm saying? And the wrong shit that they're doing.
Most
There's a big difference between that.
Oh yes, and this is for the youth, the children, young girls, young boys. Use your voice. I tell Nana Kwesi and my mate that when you with an adult or your classmate and they tell you, let's do something, you can't tell your parents or you can't tell any adult. That's wrong. What they're doing is criminal. You need to be able to use your voice. If they you don't be left alone with one person in a closed room with nobody there. Don't allow anybody to touch your chest, your backside, your genital area tickles you. So it's like, like I always want to like make them be aware of themselves. Don't sit on any adult's lap. Don't sit on anybody's lap, because we do have some perverted adults. You sat on their legs and they get hard on and all that craziness. I'm not having my child have to go through that traumatic childhood um, event. Chris Cross Mensa said, being a heavy, hard liquor drinker is bad, especially for women, because I have a cousin who got drunk and woke up in bed with a stranger, and it wouldn't have been bad if that person was better looking. I mean, yes. that is quite a shame.
You know, I have to say, I would think that waking up with a stranger is bad enough, but the fact that the person was excruciatingly ugly, you can't help but laugh.
Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, so it's like, childhood trauma also, some of the impacts, we know mental health also play part in it. It comes with, like we have post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD. We also have negative self-image, low self-image, and we have depression, anxiety, and so many others. And then, like when I have big men, I don't want to keep him on too long.
No, I understand.
We have a lot. And then we have the emotional aspect, right? The emotional aspect is uh the impact will be being limited to coping skills, because big men, we have the fixed mindset and the closed mindset people. They would say, I was never taught like that, I like the way that I am. They never go, the people who are also always refusing to, like, learn things. So they, of course, they will be limited to coping skills. They might feel.
That's because they're in denial. Because let me tell you this. You understand what I'm saying? Particularly, I don't want to pick on the elders, but I'm going to speak.
Mhm,
And candidly.
that's right.
And if you live to be a certain age,
Hmm.
you have been exposed to some type of trauma, whether it was directly to you
Yeah.
or somebody that you know. So
Yeah.
let's be in denial. You understand what I'm saying? And saying, okay, well, this stuff didn't happen to me or whatever, whatever, whatever. Because, quite frankly, when you cover the gauntlet of what trauma is, and knowing the day and age in which you grew up in,
Hmm.
okay, in the culture, I'll be damned if you're going to sit here and tell me, that certain aspects of trauma has
Yeah.
never happened to you. Okay, it may not have happened to you this way or the way that it happened to this person, but you know about it. It's probably happened to you on a minute scale,
That's right.
or a grander scale that you're in denial about, or in instances to where things have happened to people and they totally blocked it out.
Oh, definitely. I mean, some of them feel very shameful. Others, they will feel guilty. They will think that they did something that may have caused that emotional stress can build on. That's going to take a lot of emotional toll on that person, having difficulties controlling one's emotions. I mean, it's a lot, they
and
might feel very sensitive with
and
in
and
regards to being stressed out. Go
and,
ahead, man.
and to add, the bottom line is, just because you suffered a lot of ass whippings growing up doesn't mean that I have to.
Of course,
Doesn't mean that you should inflict that upon me. You
that's right.
understand? We live, we grow, and we learn. And the thing is that there are better ways of dealing with and punishing, children, so that you don't have to go through the extreme of them having to experience the pain, the degradation, the isolation, and the trauma that
Most
you.
definitely.
So, as I started before, I mean, as I started from the beginning, a lot of folks say, well, you know, I grew up in a generation, whereas, we got our ass whipped in the whole 9 yards, and this generation, that's what they need. That's what's wrong with them now. No, no, let's not get it twisted. Let's not get it twisted. What's happening is a lot of the children are the way they are today because
Of
many of us,
trauma. Mhm.
many of us have dealt with our children as if they're our damn friends,
Oh my God.
and they're not.
Exactly.
They're not our friends. They're not our equal. They're not. They should not be allowed to get away with X, Y, and Z, under no circumstances. Yes, there should be a form of punishment. You understand what I'm saying? However, it doesn't have to be traumatic.
Abusive. Yeah. It
You
should.
understand what I'm saying? So the bottom line is a lot of children today have gotten away with a lot of things that they otherwise should not have gotten away with. You're not my friend. You
Yeah,
understand?
right.
First time that your child speaks to you in a way that's disrespectful or whatever, it cannot be passed over. It has to be addressed, and it doesn't have to be addressed, in a way to where you have to, knock the child's head off. That doesn't have to be the case. However, at the same time, don't let it just pass by as if, no, it just cannot be. So the bottom line is, as I've said before, a lot of children are the way they are today because many of the adults whose care that they're under, treat them as if they're their friends,
Yeah.
and they're not.
And you know what, big man, like prior to taking psychology, and I mean, it was a friend that got me to like kind of shift my major into that, because I didn't even realize, childhood trauma does affect children cognitively,
True.
right? Because the poor academic achievement. Because I do know some people who quit school because you get flogged, and I remember, like, up to age 16, when we have exams, right? They will call names from first place to last place. So if you like last place, you do know the whole school is going to be laughing at you, right? That is traumatizing,
That's a
because
stigma.
it
Yeah,
shouldn't be. But in America, you get your report card, right? Nobody knows how bad you did aside from your parents. Your parents are not. Some parents will like use that to like kind of like traumatize you, because some parents will tell you stupid, you're not smart and stuff. But other parents, they will get you tutoring. They will get you the help that you need. Also, a lot of people cognitively, they will have difficulties with problem solving, and then language delays. We have some children who have a hard time talking, right? They don't talk. They talk at their late age, from age 4, 5, 6. They still not talking, right? And it's because they went through childhood trauma, and a lot of people don't realize that. I feel like some parents are like just rulers. They don't know some parents should not be allowed to have children, period.
Well, let's keep in mind that trauma doesn't begin as soon as you're born. Trauma begins when you're inside that
Of
belly. Trust
course,
and
the
believe.
noise, the beatings, if your mom is being shoved, be hit by a door, being beaten, being starved, having to be sexually assaulted, because we do have some people, wives that are being raped because their husband feel like they belong to them. So as to whether or not you want to have sex or not, they don't care. They're still going to have sex with you. So, being sexually assaulted, and
And
so
then you also have those mothers who think it's okay to use drugs and to
many,
drink, while they're pregnant, and it has a detrimental effect, you
on
know.
their child. Yeah.
So, trauma comes in all forms. It definitely comes, while that child is in the belly. Let's not think that,
Most
it only
definitely.
starts, once the child is born. Oh no. It
Yeah.
starts before then. I mean, remember, there is something called, crack babies. You understand?
Most definitely. And then you also have those who wants to party, and before they go out with their friends, they will get their child drunk. They will give their child hard liquor for the child to pass out, for
Goes,
them to go out and have fun. I mean, like, it's a lot. It starts from everywhere, every level. So it's like, some people will display certain behavior, and in their mind they think it's right. It's also affect relationship a lot, right? Poor understanding of social interaction regarding relationship, attachment problems, and so forth, or difficulties forming relationship with your peers, with friends, with people, someone that you like. Some people, big men, I feel like some people, they will chase after a man or woman that they think that they can um, get them to love them, right? But the person have no love for them. They're just going to sleep with them. They have problems with romantic, relationship. Some of them having sex is a problem for them. So it will ruin the relationship, because we do have people who go into relationship to just have sex. And
well,
if one is not able to do that, that's not going to hold the relationship.
well, you have a lot of people who do look for love in all the wrong places.
Oh yes, they chase. I mean, foolish race. They run foolish race, chasing people, and that person does not love them. They will chop their money, do whatsoever. I mean, a lot. Some Ghanaian women will say, "Oh, he used me." Well, you allow it, when you chase things. But childhood trauma is something that a lot of us need to, like, really think through it. If you still going through some difficulties, problems after problems, I think it's best to get counseling. Big men, most Ghanaians, if they have to go see a counselor, if they have to go counseling, or have to admit that they have PTSD, or have depression, have anxiety disorder, and so many other mental health issues now, they see it as a taboo. They don't want to express that, because our society, majority, due to dysfunctionalness, right? Name calling, labeling, stigmatism. A lot of people may be going through some mental issues, and they're not able to, like, get the help that they need. They stay in denial, because if someone tells another person, and the other person, they're going to be bullied, laughed at,
Yeah.
and the family is going to be labeled as, oh, like, you're going to get married to a madhouse and stuff like that. So what are your final thoughts when it comes to childhood traumas?
Well, first and foremost, let it be said that childhood trauma has no boundaries. Okay, it's not more or less according to cultures.
Hmm.
It's not more or less according to races.
That's
It's
right.
not more or less according to religions. It's not more or less according to health. I mean, wealth and riches. Trauma cross all the boundaries.
That's
There
right.
are no limits to childhood trauma. Everyone is susceptible and exposed to trauma at any point in time in their life.
That's
With
right.
that being said, in those places to whereas services are limited, we are now living in a day and age of social media. We are
Mm-hmm.
now living in a day and age of virtual internet. We're now living in a day of age to whereas you can seek out the help that you need, even if it's limited in your environment. Okay. One
Yeah.
of the things that I am going to say is that our mind never forgets.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, that trauma that you've been exposed to as a child will shape you and will be with you forever.
Most
But
definitely.
the question is what are the coping skills? How
Yeah.
do you deal with it? Well, first and foremost, you have to communicate it with someone. Okay? We have best friends, we have confidants, we have people that we trust in our life. You know, you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
You have to get it off your chest. You have to bring it to the surface. So, communicating about it is first and foremost. If you don't have access to a therapist or psychologist, sociologist, then, like I said, there are people that we trust. There are people who we share a bond and a confidence. You have to, under any circumstances, you have to talk about it. When we hold something inside, it takes a toll on us. When we hold trauma inside, it shapes us in a askew way. It's not straight. We become, in many cases, what we don't want to be. Okay, we become the trauma in itself. So, with that being said, first and foremost is to communicate. The other thing is you have to break the cycle of trauma. And
Yeah.
in order to break the cycle of trauma, you can do that within yourself. Okay, I'm a perfect example of that. Breaking that cycle of trauma and making a vow to never abuse my kids in ways in which I was abused with a switch, with a belt, ironing cord, extension cord, or broom. Those things didn't happen to my children. And I developed, strategies, to change that, to break that cycle. One is my voice and just the calmness and the soothness, but at the same time, the truth of pointing out, the wrongdoings and also, imposing punishment that doesn't involve, aggression and violence and pain. So in addition to that, the coping strategies, with all the traumas that we've been exposed to, in order for us to cope and to get through the day, we have to have strategies, you
That's
know,
right.
for ourselves and coping skills for ourselves. You can research that, on your own. You can look it up on the World Wide Web and develop your own strategy. you know um what is it that you can do for you to help you to get through the day? Okay, those are the strategies that you're looking for. If you have the opportunity to get therapy and to get help professionally, by all means, that's the route that you want to go down. But again, like I said, trauma crosses all boundary lines. There's no limit. It look, it doesn't discriminate.
That's right.
you know, trauma doesn't discriminate. Everybody knows about it. Everybody experiences it, and
Anyway.
the number one origin of mental health issues is trauma.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. My gosh. That is, I mean, a lot of people don't realize so, big men, and we do have some parents who causes their children mental health issues
Sure.
because they traumatizing their own children. They went through it, So if they went through it and survived, some of them literally think that being flogged and beaten and maltreated, have helped them be where they are. They don't see the danger in that. I mean, we can do better. Sometimes I hear some people say, when I was growing up, I never had the opportunity. I was never taught like that. I like the way that I am, but I will. The question I will ask them: what are you choosing to do now? Because now the power is in your court, right? You have the ability to change certain condition, the problem. What is preventing you from you know getting the help that you need? Because if you need counseling, do get counseling. Because talking about traumatic event, it does help you heal.
Sure.
It's going to be part of your life, but you'll be able to live your life in a healthier way, instead of being keeping things in and having to endure all the pain, the grief, the difficulties, the emotional and the psychological aspect, eating you alive, and not being happy. Some people, their trauma, they never get over it, whereas they take their life. Life is precious.
It is.
We should
Indeed.
be able to enjoy life without having to have our past traumatized define us. There's no need for that.
Yeah. You need an outlet. You definitely need an outlet. You don't want to, keep pressure builds, bust pipes. Pressure definitely bust pipes, and trauma is a form of pressure. And when you explode, and how you explode, it's ugly.
That's right. That's right. I mean, people get themselves. Some people are in jail because they have anger management problem. They get into rage. They take people life. And I think for me, big man, I identified three things that I seriously feel that if majority, 99.9% of Ghanaian people, and I'm speaking, I'm not trying to be anything or limited. I'm sure, like all around, but I see that most Ghanaians, they tend to uh, give excuses, blaming games, give reasons. If they are able to stay away from that, work on themselves, be responsible, and take accountability of their own actions, because whatever we had during our upbringing, we can never turn the clock back and go back to it. Is the next step what you doing, the things, coping skills you learning to do better or to change that certain condition. That is the most important. But most people always talking about the past. You have one leave a relationship, they blame whatever treatment they went through with their exes. When they find a good man or a good woman, that person is going to suffer because of what somebody else has did to them. So it's like a reenactment. It just keep going and going, and nobody's breaking that cycle. Because I mean, like, when are you going to say, okay, I think, say, I have a problem? Most of us don't want to identify our problem and work on it. When I finally realized that my anger problem was going to be, my dad was like, listen, you a female, and for you to have that anger in you, you need to do something about it. And he shared, he was like, I have anger management problem. I'm older, you younger, you can get rid of it quicker than I am, but I am working on mine. And as I said earlier, TCI, Century Models, and a lot of um, seminar and webinar that I have attended, and then of course my major, you know, um, being having knowledge of psychology has helped me tremendously.
Of
Um,
course.
and now you can learn things from Google. What are some of the things to break that? use your voice. Your voice is your power. You know, if things are happening to you, you shouldn't feel guilty. You should not feel ashamed. It's not your fault. You did not do nothing wrong. The person, you know, the abuser or the person inflicting those pain on you is the one who has problems. So don't
Right. And
allow other people to make you feel like you causing this, you bringing this to
there's
yourself.
no justification for trauma.
That's right.
There's no justification, because the person is respected, because of the, the culture, because of, it's happened to me, you're fine, you'll get over it. No justification for
Yeah.
no, no justification at all.
Yeah.
It's something that you cannot justify. It's something that you cannot whitewash. It's not something that you can sweep up under the rug, and it's not something to let be.
Most definitely. Well, big man, it's always a pleasure
Okay.
in having you join me for us to, talk about anything, everything. It's like you can go all around. It don't matter which topic we come in to talk about, you are up and ready to talk about it because it's important for us to learn from each other,
Okay.
and also help ourselves. Self work is something that many people struggle with it, and it's sad. It's really sad and serious. And I think that some people don't think about the long term effect on people. A lot of people are like, enduring so many grief and pain. And I'm hoping that this discussion today will help a lot of people. And some people will have better understanding and also get the necessary help that they need. Some of them may need professional help. Some of them they will just need to vent to people. So, like, if anyone, need to talk with someone, you need to get hold of Alfred Mack, big man. Let me know. It's not free. Any counseling is not free. Mentoring is free. He can mentor you. That one, he will do it for free. But anything else, he will charge you for it.
Okay.
If you need marriage counseling, relationship counseling, you can reach out to me. Big man also does that. He
I do
does
it all.
he does it all. So thank you for everyone who joined us. If I did not acknowledge your name, please forgive me. It's not intentional. And so thank you to everyone who shared the program, those who liked it, who used other emojis, invited friends. Thank you so much, brother John. John Ade, welcome. Oh, my in-law, sister Efia Inshira of Sister Efia Inshira, welcome. Oh, and my dear sister Efia, and then Hinan, welcome. Thank you for joining. My handsome son, Raymond, it's good to see you. Thank you for all the contribution. Crisscross, you made us laugh here and there. Hey, Sister Say. And you guys, Brother Samuel Corte, Brother Ian Walker, Brother, um, hey, my dear Islam, yes, because some earlier I was watching myself, so I see a couple names, others. So thank you everybody, and you guys see this big man. How you like my shirt?
Yeah, I got one just like it.
And this color, how it's very nice, right? I like the
Actually,
color.
mine's in black. So
Yes, yes, yes. This is courtesy of Sister Sage Williams. So if you want this type of shirt, you can use it to dress up and casual wear. Go to sageshare.com
Yeah,
and order
I
your.
might have to consult with you on that one because a lot of people like my shirt. It's
Oh, then business is on. Big
yes.
man, let's get
We're gonna have to talk about that later.
most definitely we can get them some orders, and for them to, like, you using it to, like, pop in, picking up girls and guys.
Look, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you.
I'm available every other week, so
Yes.
just hit me up, and I'll be glad to come aboard.
Oh yes, I'm taking full advantage. We're going to see Big Man here next 2 weeks Sunday by the grace, because hey, he offer. I'm just going to take it.
Blessings to you all.
Blessings to you as well. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Love you, Big Man.
Love you.
Take
I'll be
care.
in touch. Okay.
Bye. Okay. All right, guys. I see you guys next week. Throughout the week, I will kind of, like, put some videos. But next Friday is life issues, and then Saturdays will be with Sofo Samuel Koso, um, marriage lessons, and then every other Sunday I have big men who will come on and we talk about random things, and also I'm talking to some friends, family members, and other people that I'm going to be hosting on Adwoa Odo Mensa talk show. Follow my page, and subscribe my YouTube. All right, I have a lot of things lined up coming. I even have friends, children. Some of them are 14, less than 14, and this kids are so intelligent, um, geniuses. Like, the information, the things that they're saying, we have a lot of adults who do not even come close having that knowledge. So our children have to a lot for us to learn from, but some of us don't pay attention. So stay tuned. Thank you guys all. I see you guys around. Take care of yourself. All right. Be safe. One love.